Sometimes, all it takes is a single glance, a brief encounter with a form, a symbol, an image, to awaken something deep within us, something ancient, hidden, trembling beneath the surface of awareness. You can't always explain why. It's not about logic or reason. It's about resonance, that subtle vibration between your conscious mind and the vast ocean of your unconscious. And it's precisely on that level that we'll travel together today, on the level of choice. A choice that doesn't come from analysis or reason, but from the very depth of your being. Carl Gustav Jung believed that every one of our actions, every decision we make, even the smallest, echoes from our unconscious. We never decide in a vacuum. We are guided by invisible forces, patterns, wounds, archetypes. Sometimes the dominant force is the mind, precise, calculating, logical. Other times it's intuition, a silent but unshakable guide of the soul. At moments, it's the passionate current of emotion, impulsive, alive, and wild. And sometimes, it's the inability to choose that becomes our choice. Today, I invite you to a journey inward, but it won't be a simple test. There will be no questions, no scores, no statistics. Instead, you'll be presented with 5 images, each one a symbol, a mirror of a specific style of decision-making. Your task is simple. Choose one, the one that instinctively attracts you the most. Don't overthink it. Don't analyze. Don't try to understand. Just feel, because this choice doesn't come from the surface. It comes from the depths of your psyche. Your choice is not random. The image that pulls you is a reflection of what truly guides your decisions. Are you a machine of analysis? A soul trapped in indecision? A heart burning with emotion? An intuitive wanderer who listens to silent whispers? Or a traveler of the labyrinth, where all paths converge into one? Each of these paths is sacred. Each is true. But only when you become aware of it can you walk it with greater strength and peace. Now close your eyes for a moment. Take a deep breath. Let your mind grow quiet. You are about to enter a dialogue with your own soul, a symbolic conversation between what you know and what you've forgotten. In a few moments, you'll see 5 images. Trust what attracts you. And then, listen to what your unconscious wants to tell you today. If you chose the image of the brain with gears, it's likely that your yes revolves around logic, precision, and structure. Your mind works like a magnificent mechanism, an intricate system of interlocking parts, each with its purpose, its place, its timing. Nothing feels accidental to you. Everything must be recognized, analyzed, and placed in order. You think in steps. You decide by filtering consequences, facts, and rational outcomes. Anything that doesn't fit into that pattern feels threatening, like chaos, like an unknown variable that must be contained. Inside you lies a fortress of order, a mind designed like a cathedral of logic, beautiful, symmetrical, precise, and often impenetrable. But what happens when life itself refuses to fit your equations? When something comes that cannot be measured, predicted, or defined? That is where your greatest challenge begins. Not with problems, but with uncertainty. Perhaps from childhood, you were taught that thinking is power and emotions are weakness. Perhaps your world demanded wisdom without hesitation, taught you to stand tall, to never be ruled by feelings. So you learned to protect yourself not by running away, but by calculating. You built a mind that could outthink pain. In a world where every decision feels like a battle, you became a strategist, calm, rational, and precise. But even the most perfect machine is not alive. And life, true life, is not made of logic alone. It's intuition, it's rhythm, it's the heartbeat between facts. It's the unpredictable warmth of what cannot be controlled. Deep inside, even you, the master of clarity, carry a quiet longing. A longing for something spontaneous, unplanned, irrational. A craving for chaos, for surprise, for mystery. Because when everything must make sense, life eventually loses its breath. When every choice must be justified, the soul begins to suffocate. The danger of over-control is not failure, it's emptiness. You become an actor who knows all his lines, but has forgotten how to feel them. A participant turned into a tool, a builder trapped inside his own architecture. Jung once said, "What you do not make conscious will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Your mind's need for order might not be a flaw, it might be a scar. A defense against an earlier time when chaos hurt too much to bear. So you created structure. You created safety. And it worked. But now it also limits you. Because the soul does not breathe in formulas. It breathes in symbols, dreams, and uncertainty. Your clarity is your power, but your healing begins when you allow the unknown to exist. When you let life happen without dissecting it. Maybe what you need is not another plan, but a pause. A moment where the gears stop turning, and you simply listen. You might discover that beneath all those mechanisms, there's something fragile and very real. A heart that's been waiting for permission to feel without having to explain itself. Your greatest decision may not be to understand, but to have the courage not to know. If you were drawn to the image of the crossroads, you live inside the tension between thinking and feeling, between what you should do and what you truly desire. Your inner world often resembles a map with too many roads, each one seemingly right, and yet somehow wrong at the same time. Decisions never feel light. They don't flow like a river. They collide like storms. Inside you, countless voices rise, reason, emotion, fear, hope, each one demanding to be heard. The act of choosing becomes heavy, not freeing. What should be a movement forward turns into a paralyzing stillness. Maybe deep within, you learned very early that every choice has irreversible consequences. You saw mistakes, yours or others, and they branded your memory like warnings carved in stone. So now, every possibility carries the weight of potential loss. You are not weak. You are sensitive. You see more, feel more, anticipate more than most. That sensitivity is a gift, but it also builds walls. Because when you see every side of a situation, your heart can drown in its own empathy. You are like a traveler standing in the middle of a storm. Lightning splits the sky. The road signs spin in the wind. And still you stand there, unable to move. Not because you're lost, but because every direction looks like it could change everything. You hear the voice of reason whisper, "Be careful." You hear the voice of your heart shout, "Be free." Your intuition murmurs a third truth, only to be drowned by the noise of fear. Sometimes days pass like this, sometimes years, until the pain of not choosing becomes greater than the fear of choosing wrong. In Jung's psychology, the crossroads symbolizes a sacred crisis, a moment when the soul cannot go on living the old way, but hasn't yet found the courage for the new. If this is your symbol, you are in that sacred pause, the edge where transformation waits. Two archetypes wrestle within you, the wise one who seeks certainty and the inner child who longs for spontaneity. The wise one says, plan, protect, predict. The child says, jump, feel, live, and you are caught between them, trying to translate their languages into peace. Often your mind tries to solve the heart's problems with logic, analyzing what can only be felt. You wait for a perfect sign before you move. Yet the truth is that signs only reveal themselves after the first step. Choosing is not about finding the path without pain. It's about accepting that every path includes it. To choose is to say, I accept the risk of being alive. Because not choosing is also a choice, one that drains your faith drop by drop until you forget what freedom feels like. Think for a moment. Whose expectations are you carrying? Whose voice weighs heavier than your intuition? Who taught you that mistakes are fatal, when in truth they are simply directions? You may fear disappointment, judgment, or regret. But those fears are illusions of control. Every choice you make, even the wrong one, opens a door that waiting teaches you to ignore. Jung said, what we need most will be found where we least want to look. If you fear choosing, then choice itself is your medicine. Not because it promises success, but because it restores movement, and life is movement. The crossroads you face is not a punishment, it's initiation. The point where the old world ends, and the new one waits for your first step. You don't need to know where you're going. You only need to stop fearing not knowing. If your choice fell upon the image of fire, the blazing heart, the living flame, then your decisions are not calculated. They are felt. You live and choose through emotion, intense, vibrant, unstoppable. When you love completely. When you're angry, it burns through your entire being. When you believe, it becomes your religion. Your heart doesn't speak the language of logic. It doesn't wait for evidence or approval. A single glance, a whisper, a feeling, and you know. Even if no one else understands. Even if it doesn't make sense. Because for you, truth lives in what you feel. This emotional way of deciding is both a gift and a burden. It's a life lived in high definition. Every joy amplified. Every wound deepened. People may call you impulsive, unpredictable, or too sensitive. But what they fail to see is the depth behind your flame. An ocean of honesty that refuses to live half asleep. You don't want a safe life. You want a real one. You crave connection, intensity, meaning, even if it hurts. In Jungian symbolism, fire represents transformation. It destroys, but it also purifies. It consumes illusions to reveal what's true beneath the ashes. Your passion is sacred. It's the force that keeps the world alive. But unchecked, it can also become your cage. When every emotion turns into fire, you risk being burned by your own light. Think back. Perhaps once your feelings were ignored, dismissed, or ridiculed. Maybe your heart learned to shout because it wasn't heard when it whispered. So now, your emotions have become your proof of existence. Your way of saying, I am here, I am real, feel me. But passion, when fueled by old pain, can turn into chaos disguised as freedom. It's not that you love too much, it's that you fear being unseen. And that fear drives you to act, to decide, to leap. Not always because it's right, but because silence feels unbearable. Yet, true strength isn't only in burning, it's in learning when to burn and when to breathe. Because even a sacred flame needs air to live. You don't need to dim your fire. You only need to direct it, with patience, with awareness, with gentleness toward yourself. Feelings are messengers, not masters. They carry truth, but not always the whole truth. You can listen to them without being consumed by them. Jung wrote, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens." And you, my friend, are awakening because you feel deeply. Your emotions are doors, not prisons, but they open only when you stop running from stillness. So next time your heart ignites, don't extinguish it, but don't let it devour you either. Pause. Listen. Let the flame settle into a steady glow instead of a wildfire. Because sometimes, your greatest act of courage is not to follow the first impulse, but the second, the one that arises when the fire quiets down and leaves only truth behind. Your heart does not have to burn to feel alive. It only needs to stay open, warm, but wise. If you were drawn to the image of the golden compass, it means your choices rarely come from logic or raw emotion. They come from something quieter, deeper, and older. You are guided by intuition, a subtle voice that others might not hear, but that you can never ignore. Your decisions are not loud. They don't explode like fireworks. They unfold in silence, like a tide you suddenly realize has already shifted. You don't need reasons. You feel when something is right. And even if you can't explain why, you trust that inner pulse that says, "This is the way." For you, intuition is not a trick of luck. It's a sacred instrument, a compass forged from years of listening to what cannot be spoken. Maybe long ago, when the outer world failed you, when no one understood what you felt, you turned inward. You learned to hear the whispers beneath the noise, and in that stillness, you discovered a guide that never lied to you. This inner compass became your map, pointing not north or south, but toward what is true. In Jung's psychology, intuition is a bridge between the conscious and the unconscious. It is the language of the soul, a knowing that exists before thought, beyond logic, arriving like light through the cracks of reason. To others, you might seem like a dreamer, a wanderer, someone who floats between worlds. But you know that not everything real can be measured, and not everything unseen is imaginary. You move through life like a pilgrim in the dark, trusting that your feet will find the ground before you fall. And they do, because your path, though invisible, is alive. But this gift carries its burden. Sometimes you question your own knowing. You wonder if your intuition is guidance or escape. Are you avoiding confrontation, or are you simply choosing peace? Are you following your inner truth, or protecting yourself from the harshness of the outer world? That's the paradox of intuition. It doesn't shout, it whispers. And when the world grows loud, it's easy to mistake silence for absence. Remember this: intuition is not avoidance. It's not a way out. It's a way through. It leads you directly to what you most fear confronting, but in a way that feels natural, almost gentle. Jung said, "Intuition is perception via the unconscious. It's the soul seeing before the eyes do. And yes, it can make you lonely, because most people trust what they can prove. You trust what you can feel, but that's your strength, not your flaw. You are not lost. You are simply navigating by a star no one else sees. Still, this path requires courage, because intuition doesn't promise rewards, only authenticity. Ask yourself, can you remain faithful to what you feel even when no one understands it? Can you walk the invisible road without demanding proof of where it leads? Because the greatest act of faith is not in any god or teacher. It's in the quiet certainty that lives within you. Your golden compass doesn't show directions on a map. It reveals alignment between who you are and who you are becoming. Follow it, even if the world laughs. even if you walk alone. Because those who trust their inner light often become the lanterns for others lost in the dark. If you chose the image of the labyrinth with the golden eye at its center, then your journey through life is not linear, it's spiral. You're not one thing, not one type, not one function of the mind. You are complexity itself, a living synthesis of logic, intuition, emotion, and doubt. For you, decision-making is not a simple act. It's an inner ritual. You don't just choose, you descend. You move through layers of thought, feeling, and memory, searching not for the fastest answer, but for the most true. You don't walk the straight road, you walk the sacred maze of meaning. And every turn you take, every apparent detour, leads you deeper into yourself. In Jungian symbolism, the labyrinth is the map of the psyche. It represents the heroic path inward, toward the self, the center that unites all opposites, light and shadow, mind and heart, reason and mystery. If this is your image, you are what Jung called the seeker. You question everything, not to doubt life, but to taste it fully. You sense patterns where others see chaos. You connect symbols that others overlook. Your mind and soul are alchemists, turning confusion into understanding and pain into wisdom. But such depth has a cost. You often see too many possibilities, feel too many truths at once, and it can paralyze you. You wonder, is this really my choice? Or just the echo of someone else's expectation? Is this my intuition? Or a wound repeating itself? You don't live on the surface. You live at the crossroads of consciousness, and that is both your blessing and your burden. Because sometimes, the more you see, the harder it becomes to move. You wait for perfect clarity, forgetting that clarity is not what begins the journey. It's what arrives after you start walking. Jung once wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." And you, more than anyone, understand that. You don't fear the shadow. You've walked through it, touched it, even learned to listen to its language. Your labyrinth is not made of confusion. It's made of meaning. Every wall you face is not a block. It's a question. Every turn is a lesson. And in the center of it all waits something precious. Not an answer, but you. The true, unmasked, undivided you. The one who existed before the world told you who to be. So perhaps your real task is not to escape the labyrinth, but to understand why you built it, to meet the architect within, and to realize that every path, no matter how winding, has always been leading home. The journey you've just taken isn't a game or a test. It's a mirror, a conversation between your soul and your awareness. Each image, the mind of logic, the crossroads of indecision, the flame of emotion, the compass of intuition, and the labyrinth of integration, represents a sacred aspect of you. None is better. None is worse. Each carries both light and shadow, wisdom and pain. You are all of them. And in recognizing that, you begin to reclaim the wholeness that the modern world so easily fragments. Every choice you make in life is more than a decision. It's a dialogue between what is known and what is still becoming known, between what can be measured and what can only be felt. Let your choices be bridges, not walls. Let your yes and no become symbols of courage, not fear. When you stand before your next decision, pause, breathe, listen. Because the real power is not in control, but in surrendering to the living mystery of your own soul. And perhaps, somewhere within that quiet mystery, you'll finally hear the most important question of all. Am I ready to trust myself? That question has no single answer. It has countless paths, and each one you will create as you walk it.